Richard Medhurst, welcome back to the mother of all talk shows. Now, I spoke to Farhan Franchak earlier about how the Americans are viewing the funeral and the royal soap opera. How does it look to people in the Arab and wider Muslim world, would you say?
Thanks for the lovely introduction, George. Well, I have to be a bit biased because knowing what Britain and France did in Syria, Sykes-Picot, Balfour Declaration, which of course gave away Palestine as if it were ours to give away in the first place. I don't think people are shedding too many tears, honestly, in the Arab world, because the crimes that we committed, the British Empire committed, and we should note that these were crimes that took place even under the reign of Queen Elizabeth. Now, of course, Sykes-Picot, this is before her time, but let's not forget about all the bloody crimes. India, Malaya, Iran, the list is endless. And so I don't think too many people will be shedding tears. Now, on the flip side, being British, I don't want to speak ill of the dead. I don't do that, and I don't think there's anything funny about it. But I won't be shedding too many tears either, because I remember many months ago, and you've probably been saying this for much longer than that, but I remember something that you posted on Twitter where you said that we should have a referendum when the Queen passes away on whether we should abolish the monarchy or not. And that always stuck, stuck in my mind. And I think that it's a very pertinent thing that should take place. It's one thing to mourn Queen Elizabeth. We should also recognize, however, that she was head of state when all these crimes occurred. Who the hell is King Charles? I mean, this guy is, I think he's the lowest approval rating out of all the members of the royal family. That's number one. I'm sure you have seen the videos, as I did, of him pulling faces, shall we say, and grimaces at his aides because the pen
snarling.
I mean,
he was snarling at his staff. Yeah,
truly. If he does that in public, what's he doing in private? And
well, quite so. He's probably kicking them in private, like they used to do in times gone by. There's a couple of points I'd like to make in response to what you just said, Richard. It's first of all true that when some of the crimes of empire were committed in Muslim countries, I'm thinking Yemen, for example, in the 1950s and 60s. I'm thinking Malaya during the insurgency, where we were actually paying a bounty, not making this up, folks, for every severed head of a Malayan insurgent that were brought to the British barracks. I'm thinking of the conflict in Kenya, where concentration camps against the Mau Mau rebels. I remember as a child having my blood chilled by the word Mau Mau and atrocities and so on. But the Mau Mau were Kenyan people fighting for the rights of Kenyans to rule their own country and not to be ruled by a foreign empire. These all happened under the reign of Queen Elizabeth II. But it is important to note that by then, neither the King nor the Queen of Britain made any of these decisions. They were made by the governments elected by the British people. So the blame has to be shared by all of us, really, Richard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are a constitutional monarchy, supposedly, and I know that the Queen is said to have, and legally is said to have a more of a ceremonial role than anything. Nevertheless, I still ask myself, why does every bill require royal assent? Is that not participating in the legal process? That's just one point to it. But I would say that even though the blame must be shared equally amongst the government ministers, the intelligence services, and not just the head of state. She is the figurehead. She does represent us. That's why she goes and visits all these countries, right? I think this was recorded where she was saying that she's visited, I think 20 African countries, and this is a long time. The list is probably longer than that. Why does she go to these countries? Because, well, many of them, are former colonies. It's just like the French, like Charles de Gaulle, who wanted to maintain influence in Africa. And on top of that, she goes there to do the same thing, is to maintain British influence, and she goes there as our representative. So I agree with you completely that the blame has to be shared, but I'm just confused by all this mass hysteria right now that everyone is making her out to be some kind of angel. She's the figurehead, and if she's the figurehead, she's the head of state, you have to also recognize the ugly things that we did under the British Empire and are still doing, to this day, this very minute. Many things that are going on in secret, other things in the open. And so I don't understand this mass hysteria, everyone pretending like she's some completely, utterly innocent Nan, and the royal family should just be worshipped and we should give them all our money. I don't understand this. I really don't understand this.
Well, it's just as well she's being buried in Westminster Abbey, because there are people out there on the streets of London who, if she was going on the funeral pyre, would throw themselves on it. There is undoubtedly hysteria, and it is mass hysteria, but it's not everyone. I myself have spent a lot of time around people yesterday, the day before, and today. As you know, I'm involved in football, and so I've been with significant numbers of people in Birmingham and in Manchester and in Scotland over the last few days. I've got to tell you, I haven't yet to meet one person that's actually mourning. I've got yet to meet one person who even raised the issue with me. None of them showed any signs of giving a second thought to what in the public realm was apparently hegemonic, dominant narrative. And I think I would have. I would have spotted the signs of genuine public mourning. And I spotted none of those signs. Last word to you, Rich.
I mean, this is once again a proof how what the mainstream media do, what the mainstream media say is not always what's happening in reality. And when I said mass hysteria, I mean, certainly there are people who are who would throw themselves on a fire like you just mentioned. But the fact that we're expected to participate in it, I think, is insulting. If you want to mourn the Queen, that's fine. But don't act like she's completely innocent. Don't pretend the royal family are innocent. Don't pretend that it's okay that King Charles, who made this guy king? Who decided that he should be our king? I don't know. And don't whitewash and forget the colonial crimes that took place when she was head of state. She was the figurehead. And again, the blame is not only on her, but nevertheless, we should remember that. And we need to understand that if we're going to go around lecturing other countries, bombing them, invading them, sanctioning them in the name of democracy, and we ourselves do not even have a real democracy, and the Queen is just one of many issues, it's hypocritical. It's very hypocritical, and it makes us look stupid on the world stage.
Richard, state-mandated mourning is meaningless mourning. It is mournography that we have lived through, and it's actually the latest in a series of events: the COVID mass hysteria, the Ukrainian mass hysteria, right, the royal mass hysteria. It's almost as if they wanted us to get used to mass hysteria and mass psychosis. As always, I'm grateful for your presence. Give my regards to your mother, please. And I look forward to talking with you again soon. That's Richard Medhurst, the very bright young commentator. You can follow him on social media. He's broadcasting a lot